Tonight, before we name anything, before we explain anything, there's something you need to feel, a quiet pressure, because at some point in human history, something broke. Not loudly, not violently, but completely. For tens of thousands of years, humans survived without rulers. No kings, no crowns, no central authority deciding right or wrong. And yet, we didn't collapse. So here's the uncomfortable question. Why did humanity suddenly decide that one person should carry the fate of thousands? This wasn't inevitable. It wasn't written into our biology. And it certainly wasn't peaceful. Something forced the change. Something made small communities impossible. Something made shared decisions too slow. Because when people talk about kings, they imagine power. But the first kings didn't appear because people wanted to be ruled. They appeared because something had gone wrong. Food began to disappear. Arguments stopped resolving themselves. Groups grew too large to remember everyone's name. Trust broke down. And when trust collapses, fear fills the space. Fear doesn't wait for discussion. Fear demands decisions. Fast ones. So the real mystery isn't, who was the first king? It's this. What happened that made humanity willing to give up equality? Because once authority appears, it never fully disappears. And whatever caused the first kings to rise still affects us today. There are explanations, comfortable ones, the kind we repeat because they feel safe. We're told leadership emerged because societies became more complex, more people, more food, more problems. Someone had to organize things. Someone had to manage resources. Someone had to decide when arguments ended. That explanation sounds reasonable, but it doesn't explain urgency. Complexity doesn't automatically create kings. Plenty of societies grew large without centralized power. They used councils, elders, temporary leaders, authority rotated. So why didn't that continue? Why did leadership stop being flexible? Why did it harden? Because the archaeological record hints at something else, something unstable, evidence of sudden stress, rapid population spikes, environmental unpredictability, periods where cooperation alone wasn't enough. When food storage became unequal, violence increased. When water control mattered, arguments turned deadly. And when survival depends on timing, that discussion becomes dangerous. Consensus takes time, hunger doesn't, so leadership changed. Not because humans wanted hierarchy, but because chaos punishes hesitation. Still, this explanation has cracks. If kings were purely practical, why were they surrounded by ritual? Why did authority become sacred? Why wasn't leadership just a job? Why did it require belief? That's where the story becomes uncomfortable. Because practicality alone doesn't explain obedience. Fear explains some of it, but belief explains endurance. And once belief enters the system, the rules change. There's another possibility, one that doesn't fit neatly into textbooks. What if early kingship wasn't just a response to complexity, but to loss? Loss of something humans once relied on. Shared memory, shared values, shared limits. When communities were small, everyone knew everyone. Reputation mattered, shame worked. But when groups grew large, those invisible controls disappeared, and humans needed a symbol to replace them, a figure to embody order. Not because they trusted him but because they feared what would happen without him. This theory suggests kings weren't born from strength. They were born from vulnerability, from the realization that humans could no longer self-regulate at scale. And once authority was externalized, it reshaped us. We stopped resolving conflict ourselves. We handed that responsibility away, and we never fully took it back. That's the part history rarely discusses. Because if this theory is true, then kingship wasn't progress. It was a compromise, one we're still living with. So here's the question I want you to sit with. Did kings save civilization? Or did civilization lose something the moment kings appeared? There's no final answer. And maybe that's the point. And if you think the answer is obvious, you might want to ask yourself who taught you that answer.